Shame is a big topic to cover. It can impact every aspect of our lives, and I'm making for more videos about it. But there's one fundamental aspect of shame that when you get super clear on it, when you make it concrete, you can make huge strides toward healing, toward regaining your sense of self-confidence and self-esteem so that you can feel a clear conscience. So today we're going to be talking about the one question you need to ask to clarify guilt, shame, and regret, and one choice that will heal it. And I made a cool little flow chart to nerd out over. So let's jump in. Okay, so guilt is the emotion that comes up when we think I've made a mistake. Guilt's an uncomfortable emotion, but it's not a negative one. That's because all pure emotions serve a function, and guilt can motivate us to fix it when we've hurt someone. More on this later. But if guilt says, I made a mistake, shame says, I am a mistake. Shame is more than feeling like you messed up. It's believing that you're irrecoverable, that what you've done is so bad, that if people really knew you, they'd attack you and reject you. Shame shows up in a couple areas of our life. It shows up in our mind with thoughts like I'm worthless, I'm bad, I'm never good enough, or I'm a failure, I'm a loser, or I'm broken or defective. It's all my fault. So those are some of the thoughts that come with shame, but shame also shows up in our body with a slumped posture, a downward gaze, turning away, withdrawing, hiding, shrinking, freezing. And in some of my other videos, I'm going to talk about this, but if you look at how soccer players react when they've messed up, they're shrinking, they're making themselves small, they're covering their faces, right? Okay, shame also comes with some actions. So these include giving up, hiding our true selves, trying to fit in, and people please having really poor boundaries. It can also look like perfectionism, isolation, and self-sabotage. So in other videos, I'm going to talk about how shame shows up in each of these three areas. But today we're going to talk about the choice you can make about shame, guilt, and regret, and how you can get to here fueling this cycle of healing and reparation and confidence and connection. Okay, so back to the top. Let's define regret. Regret is saying, oh, I wish I had done things differently now that I know differently. It's usually looking back on whatever happened in the past that led to the guilt and the longing to be able to change what you did. And the pitfall with regret is that people often get stuck ruminating or overthinking their past mistakes. Now, if we look at these three, guilt, shame, and regret, guilt is a pretty healthy emotion because it could trigger healthy action. Shame is a pretty toxic emotion. It usually does not help us take helpful action in any way. Same with regret. Regret is like, I'm going to ruminate on it. I'm going to think about it over and over again. So guilt, we kind of actually want to shift toward clarifying guilt. So let's start at square one, right? You feel shame, guilt, or regret. Here's the one question to ask. Did I do something wrong? This is super important because if our honest answer is yes, then we're experiencing guilt about something that we can take action on to make repairs. Okay, so that's the choice. We're going to come back to that. But victims of trauma frequently blame themselves for situations that were beyond their control. That's one form of shame. It will eat you up. And I made an entire video about this, but let me summarize. Due to intense, overwhelming emotions that come up after trauma, the brain often takes a shortcut to self-blame. And this might even have a protective factor to it, but it's still faulty and it's still harmful and it's still a form of toxic shame. There's three common ways victims blame themselves. Number one, they take full responsibility for every situation. They might say something like, it's my fault. My parents got divorced, or it's my fault. My brother died. Okay. Number two, they believe they should have seen it coming like, oh, I should have known that it would rain on my wedding day. I should have known that this guy would have ended up becoming abusive, right? Or number three, they make it about their own personal deficiencies. They say, well, I'm just so lazy, stupid, inconsiderate, idiotic, clumsy, right? It can be surprisingly easy to fill in that blank. So this is the first way that shame can be really toxic when it convinces you that the horrible thing that happened was your fault. Rape victims might believe it was because they wore certain clothes. Victims of a mugging think that they should have somehow known not to walk to work that day, or a husband whose wife cheated on him believes it's because he wasn't attractive or loving enough. So it's really important as we ask this question, did I actually do something wrong? Here's the exercise I do to help my clients clarify, just a sec, we're going to need a piece of paper. Take a piece of paper and you fold it in half or draw a line down the middle and you write on one side of the piece of paper the actions you took, my actions, and the other half you put their actions. Okay. And you write down what you did and you write down what they did. Okay. And then when you're done writing it down, you tear in half. And that's because your choices did not cause their choices. Yeah. You're responsible for what? What would you have written down on this side? You're responsible for wearing clothes. You're responsible for walking to work. You're responsible for whether you're loving towards your spouse and the other side of them. They're responsible for rape, for violence, for theft, for breaking their marriage promises. You're only responsible for your side of this. They are 100% responsible for their side of this. You're not responsible for their choices. Now, of course, you can change what you wear, where you walk, or how you love your spouse. But none of these things are crimes. Rape is a crime. Violence and theft is a crime, and you did not cause them to do those actions. Okay, but what about the husband, right? He did not cause his wife to cheat. That was her choice, but he knows in his heart that he didn't treat her with as much love as he wanted to. And he regrets that. So what do we do with that? That was one of his choices, right? So he could have written, I didn't take out the trash as often as I should have, right? I didn't show her love by serving her in the kitchen. So when we go to clarify on this little flow chart here with the first two examples, there's a clear no. Actually, I did nothing wrong. So we're going to follow this line here from the no. Actually, I did nothing wrong. I'm not guilty. I have nothing to be ashamed of, and gaining that clarity helps us fuel this cycle of healing, reparation, and compassion, right? We're going to treat ourselves and others with love. We're going to reach out for support and love from the people who truly see you and know you and love them. Okay, so going back to the husband, let's go back to the husband. Did he do something wrong? The husband, deep in his heart, can honestly say, no, I did not cause my wife to cheat. That was her decision, and I truly want to love her better. That's a regret. So that specific area is a yes. Again, he did not cause the cheating. He's not responsible for that. And deep in his heart, he knows that he should have taken the trash out more. Now, I want to be really clear here. I'm not saying that this caused his wife to cheat. These are two separate people with two separate responsibilities. I'm just saying we all have a deep sense of what is right. And when we know that we've gone against our deepest sense of what is right, when we've gone against our conscience or our values, we can choose to heal by taking accountability for ourselves, even when other people have harmed us greatly and they're responsible for that. We just have to be really honest and not take accountability for them. So if we want to fuel cycles of healing, growth, connection, and honesty in our personal lives and in society, we have to know what to do with a yes answer. So let's say you ask yourself, did I really do something wrong? And your answer is yes. Okay, right here, here's the choice. This is super important. This is the deciding point of whether you're going to let shame and regret poison you or you're going to heal. Now, if you face it and you make repairs, you're going to fuel a cycle of healing. And we're going to talk more on this later. But the most natural thing to do with shame, guilt, and regret is to hide. In one of the oldest stories, after Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, two things happened in quick succession. Adam and Eve tried to hide from God. And when God found them, Adam blamed Eve for his choice. This story has been passed down for thousands of years because it resonates with each of us. When we mess up, when we feel shame, the most natural thing to do is to hide. And our very clever brain can be very creative in how we try to hide from others and from our own sense of responsibility. It can look like covering up your mistake, blaming others, making excuses like everyone else was doing it, seeking any form of emotional numbing or distraction like screens or detaching from others or drug use, right? And it's really common. But a strange form of self-protection is labeling yourself as broken. So that's like saying, well, I just suck at relationships. I'll never be any good with the implied. So it's not my fault, and it's not worth the energy to try to fix it. So this is another super common form of self-justification. It feels vindicating. It feels better than taking responsibility, at least in the short term, but it fuels toxic shame. When you believe, oh, there's no hope for someone as broken or as bad as me, so I'll just keep doing destructive stuff. Or you think, oh, I'll let my old boyfriend keep mistreating me. I didn't set good boundaries. So no one would want a healthy relationship with someone as flawed as me. I guess I'm just doomed to settle for crappy relationships. This is one of the most pervasive forms of toxic shame. And all of us have made some mistakes in our lives. That's normal. All of us can say, yes, I've messed up. But when we label ourselves as broken, bad, or defective, that's when we cross the line from a mistake that we can fix to fueling toxic shame. Now, shame is a liar. It's a distortion of guilt. It takes you from something actionable, like I should fix that, to a hopeless place with few options. So to heal from shame, we need to catch ourselves in this form of hiding and self-justifying and constantly make the choice to shift our attention back to making repairs. Okay, so usually the biggest obstacle is the label we give ourselves. Labels not make you good, bad. You must love you. If I'm going to say it bluntly, if you're labeling yourself as broken, bad, or defective, it's because believing that is doing something for you. It's helping you avoid the vulnerable work of taking accountability and making repairs. Now, I know that it feels like you're taking too much accountability, but if it doesn't lead to helpful action, it's just a mental habit that's actually comforting and avoiding accountability. Okay, so when we do any of these things, blaming others, covering up our mistakes, making excuses, detaching, numbing, or labeling ourselves as broken, we're fueling this cycle of hurt for ourselves and for others. Okay, that's what fuels the cycle of toxic shame. Let me tell you about a TED Talk I watched. I watched this incredible TEDx talk the other day. It was about a woman named Thordis, and she was raped by a man named Tom when they were both teenagers. She had gotten drunk, and he took advantage of her. Now, afterwards, she blamed herself, and shame fueled depression. It was years before she even identified the situation as rape. And even more years before she realized the only thing that could have stopped me from being raped that night is the man who raped me. Had he stopped himself, that realization helped free her from false shame. She spent years trying to think, what should I have done differently to prevent this? And when she moved toward more honesty, more accountability, she realized Tom was responsible for this. Okay. Meanwhile, Tom did not mentally acknowledge that what he had done was rape. Let me back up. Thordis was stuck in false shame. She was blaming herself for something that was not her fault. Meanwhile, Tom didn't mentally acknowledge that what he had done was rape. So he was trying to justify and kind of numb himself. He justified it by trying to convince himself that it was sex. He said what followed is a 9-year period that can best be titled as denial and running. He was distracting himself. He was trying to convince himself that he was a good person. So during all these years, Thordis took out her anger and fear on herself, and shame isolated her from real relationships. One day, she shakily wrote a letter to Tom telling him how she'd been affected and telling him, I want forgiveness because she deserved personal peace. And Tom surprisingly courageously replied, and he shifted to where we're going next, right? This is how we heal from shame. He owned up to what he'd done for 8 years. They wrote to each other and worked through their pain and their responsibilities. And each of them listened to each other and shared. Eventually, they met in person. They even wrote a book together to help people from both ends of the perpetrator-survivor scale. So what they did took incredible courage. Honest accountability is hard, but living a life where you're running from the truth is harder. And this is how we heal from shame. Most people simply don't know how to make repairs. So making repairs when you've made a mistake looks like these steps. And this is what Tom did. Okay, the first step is to take accountability and to say, I made a mistake. Second step is to empathize, to imagine how that impacted someone else. You might say something like that must have hurt you, or scared you, or inconvenienced you. And the third step is to listen. You might ask, how did that hurt you? The fourth step is to make repairs. What do I do to make it right? So for example, if you stole something, it's your job to repay it, to pay it back, to work it off, whatever it takes to make it right for that person. The fifth step is to learn from the experience. Like, what do I need to learn to prevent this from happening in the future? What skills do I need to develop? Tom had to learn about respecting women and seeing them as equals. A thief might need to learn new job skills so that they can feed their family and they don't have to steal to feed their family. And then the sixth step is to try not to do it again. This isn't just like white knuckling. It's building up skills and resources through practice to prevent yourself from choosing to act that way. I really like the content creator Jimmy on relationships. He tells on his channel how he cheated on his wife, and then he spent the next years learning the skills, how to have a deep and fulfilling relationship, how to listen to and support his wife, how to be honest, how to set boundaries, and how to ask for his needs. He channeled that guilt and regret into action, and that helped his marriage too. And now he's helping others learn from it as well. Making repairs is really hard, but when you've started to practice it, you can start to feel this incredible energy and peace that comes from it. And I think this is really important. If you look at the AA steps, a lot of them involve getting really honest, taking an honest inventory of yourselves, making repairs where it's helpful, and learning to do something different moving forward. And when you fuel this cycle of healing and reparation and compassion, you're going to start to feel differently. You're going to feel a clear conscience. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel like you can truly show yourself to others. You don't have to keep hiding, and your relationships are going to become more real and deep. Okay, so this is one of the ways we heal shame. The first way is getting really honest and saying, I did nothing wrong. I'm not guilty. I have nothing to be ashamed of. The second way is to say, yeah, actually I did mess up. I'm going to face it. I'm going to make repairs. I'm going to take accountability, and I'm going to learn from this experience and try not to do it again. Let's talk about regret just for a minute, right? What we do with old hurts. What do we do with regret? Especially when things happen a long time ago or feel like it's something we can't repair. With regret, our brain has a sneaky way of avoiding and hiding from accountability, and it's called rumination. You think and you think and you think about the mistakes you made, and your brain pretends that this is helpful. So you keep doing it. But dwelling on the past actually perpetuates the hurt. You're making yourself miserable, and you're not helping anyone else either. So you got to go right back to the choice here, right back to the choice, and you've got to choose to make repairs instead of ruminate. It's the same steps. But how do you make repairs for something that happened so long ago or impacted people so much or something you cannot fix, right? So a common example is a parent who looks back and wishes they'd been more loving or supportive. Maybe their kids have cut them off. Another content creator, the holistic psychologist, made a great post the other day. Here's what she said. Here's what an adult child wants to hear from their parents. It's also called accountability. I know I didn't always handle my emotions well, and I was overwhelmed often. I can see how that would have been scary for you growing up, and I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that alone. Or another example, I know I was highly critical and demanded perfection. I was too tough on you. It's the same way, I'm too tough on myself. You deserved more softness and more kindness, and I'm going to work on speaking that way to you now. Notice that step of like, I'm going to work on it now, here, in the present moment. That's very different from defending or justifying or ruminating on the past. It's like, I'm going to work on this now. Okay, here's another example. Some of the punishments I gave you were harmful. I was given those same punishments, and I see now that they were wrong. I'm sorry, and I hope that you can understand how much I regret it. And you'll notice the comment. Someone commented on this saying about their own parents, they'd rather die on the hill of, I did the best I could where you weren't exactly an easy child, which is why going no contact was in my best interest. So the reason that kid went no contact is because their parents shifted to shame. They said, well, I did the best I could. They're making excuses, or they blamed it on the kid. You weren't an easy child. Instead of just taking accountability, man, that was a hard time for you. That was a hard time for me. That must have hurt you. What can I do now to make it not keep perpetuating that hurt? Excuses and self-justification fuel shame, and distancing and accountability fuels connection. So, with regret, instead of regretting the past, learn to make those changes here in the present moment. If you can't connect with or talk with the person you've harmed, perhaps you take action by going to therapy to learn new skills or practicing compassion in the present moment or sharing your story with others so they can avoid making the same mistakes. There's always an action available here in the present moment to line your life up with your values. The way we heal is to constantly shift our attention and our efforts toward honesty, accountability, and healing. Now, I think it's important to note that shame is like black mold. It thrives in dark, hidden places. It thrives. The more we hide, the more we try to not let other people see our shame or our guilt that fuels toxic shame. And like mold, it dies in the sunlight. We heal shame when we connect with other people. This is why confession and connection is essential. As long as you're hiding yourself from others, you'll never feel truly safe and loved because you'll think if they truly knew me, they despise me. But the shocking truth is that when people humbly, truly show themselves, when they take accountability, people tend to be way more generous and accepting than you'd ever believe than when you're hiding in shame. And I'm referring to people in person, not the internet. Okay, you cannot do this work alone. Do it with a therapist, do it with a support group, write a letter, write a book, tell your closest friends. Shame isolates, connection heals. Okay, so to summarize, when we feel guilt, shame, or regret, we ask one question and we get to make one choice. So first we have to ask the question, did I actually make a mistake? Trauma can make us falsely blame ourselves. And if the answer is yes, I actually did make a mistake, we want to shift away from shame-fueled labels. Like I'm just a bad person to action words. I made a mistake. Shift away from labels to action. Make the choice, face it, take steps to make repairs, take accountability, admit your faults, empathize with their hurt, and learn from the experience. Okay, here's my last thought. You may be thinking, but what I've done is so hurtful that I can never repair the harm I've done. That may be true. As humans, we often make mistakes that we cannot fix on our own. But I personally believe there's a natural force of grace, light, and healing in the universe. Now I attribute it to God. You can attribute it to whatever you'd like, but if you carefully observe, life gives opportunities to heal over time. One time I was in an ancient cave in Great Basin National Park, and we were walking through these amazing formations, stalactites, stalagmites, cave bacon, and just these gorgeous formations. Now, these formations had taken hundreds of thousands of years to form drip by drip. A tiny molecule of mineral gets left on the end of a drip, and over thousands of years, these gorgeous formations are made. But a few decades ago, humans found a cave and thought, hey, this is neat. I want to take this home with me. And they broke off some of the stalactites and the stalagmites. They broke off some of these formations, and you could see these broken ends of these thousands-year-old formations. And I can still feel the pain of that damage, and it's damage that they couldn't repair. Now the formations are protected, right? There's fencing and no one's busting them off anymore. But it feels like, oh, how can we possibly heal from this? But if you look carefully, I found one little broken stalactite that had started to heal, and on the stump of its little broken off end, it had already started to grow a new formation, a little nub. And even though it hadn't fully repaired, the universe is patient and eternity is a long time. I personally believe the force of healing is strong, and with time, all things can be healed. Little by little, that stalactite will grow long and beautiful again. And I think if you look around you, you can see glimmers of this healing everywhere. The drive toward healing and love and connection. I hope this helps you feel it. Thank you for watching and take care. Hey, real quick, if you found any part of this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up or share it with someone who could benefit from it today. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much and take care.